Hey everyone, I'm Cathy Rankin, host of the Metal Hall of Fame with Eddie Trunk, and I am so excited today to be bringing you the very first official Metal Hall of Fame podcast. You know, we've been inducting metal legends and rock legends for over 10 years now, but we finally wanted to bring a show to you that brings you, the fans, into the conversation to hear the real mission, music, and mayhem that is the Metal Hall of Fame and is basically the metal genre. So I am very excited to have my very first guest, David Ellefson, sitting next to me. He's in the studio with me. We got our first little product placement with his Ellefson coffee. And by the way, it's really good. Now, David, I wanted to talk to you. Okay, first of all, how did we luck out and get you in the studio today? Because you're on the road with Metal Church. You're on the road with Kings of Thrash. You and I just did Ellefson Soto in LA, killer show. And you have Ellefson Coffee. You did the Nick Menza documentary. You just were involved in the Paul Di'Anno documentary. Mm-hmm. When do you have time to do everything you're doing?
Well, let's go to Pulp Fiction. You caught me in the transitional phase.
Which has been lasting about, what, 15 years?
I literally just happened to be home. We're here in Scottsdale, Arizona, by the way. Hello, good to see you. And we got to share the stage together at the Whiskey A Go-Go. Thank you for doing that with Ellefson Soto before we went out on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which is always cool. I'm literally home for a couple of weeks, and then we fire up Metal Church and things get rocking. So you never know. You know, you caught me in a little lucid interval here, so I just happened to be home. I live right up the road, and
nice.
We're good to be here. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you because you always are a great storyteller, and we were just laughing before the cameras started rolling about some of the craziness that has been the Metal Hall of Fame, but it's all good, fun stuff. So tell me how you first got involved in the Metal Hall of Fame. You were inducted as a musician.
Right.
So number one, you are a legend in metal yourself. So you were inducted. I remember that. You've performed multiple times at the show. And what we do every year, we have the annual gala, which is when we honor and recognize the biggest contributors in metal. So it is really important to keep the genre alive. But after that, how did you get involved more behind the scenes and really championing the whole cause?
Well, first I was inducted, then I was abducted. I was inducted as a musician, and then I was abducted onto the board of directors, which was about 2 years ago, which has really been great to be part of that with Jimmy and Pat and Brian from Cleopatra Records, Wendy Dio. So I'm super honored to be on such a prestigious board. Metal people talking about metal and in fact, this podcast was one of the ideas that was brought up, I believe, by Pat, the founder and proprietor of Metal Hall of Fame, as something to do in between the galas, that we do, the galas, I guess, that we do usually around the NAMM show in Los Angeles every January. So this is also super great to have something kind of midterm, if you will, to keep the story alive about the Metal Hall of Fame. I think my first involvement, I believe, was I inducted Nick Menza posthumously after his passing in 2018, I believe. So I did that. In 2019, I was inducted as a musician myself. I believe it may have been a year later or two, I inducted Cleopatra Records.
Right, I remember that.
Tim Yasui and Brian Pereira. And then I think it was 2024, I inducted, probably along with you, Eddie Trunk into the Metal Hall. And I know Kings of Thrash played that year as well. Yep. I believe we may have even played another year. I can't remember. It all kind of runs together. There's a lot that goes on during NAMM.
There is.
And the Metal Hall has been very gracious. I've always got Metal Allegiance. There's appearances with the vendors, Jackson Guitars. There's always a lot going on that week. So they've always been very concessionary for me to kind of carve holes in the schedule to come over and make this stuff happen.
Yeah. Well, it's always been a lot of fun to see you play there, and I think people don't realize what it takes behind the scenes for a full year to pull this thing together every year to get all those musicians who are in between tours or on tours in one spot. And sometimes people are flying in last minute. So now there's another gentleman who I want to bring into this. And actually, I'm going to bring two guests. And we have first Jimmy Kay, who he himself is very well known in the metal community. He has his own show, The Metal Voice, and he has a lot of people that tune into his show. He does great. He's also a filmmaker and a producer, but he does great shows, not only on his podcast, but his website has a lot of great articles. They do debates on different topics and controversies in metal. He does album reviews. So Jimmy, I'm going to bring you into the conversation, and also Pat will be coming in a minute because he's the heart and passion behind Metal Hall of Fame. But Jimmy, how did you get looped into the Metal Hall of Fame? When did you start, and why did you think it was important to be involved in this?
Well, before I answer that question, is gala a word?
Gala is a word.
Gala or gala? I don't know.
Is
I
it
say
gala or
gala.
gala?
I say gala.
I think it's gala. I think it's a
potato
long
or
A.
potato.
Well, yeah.
I've never heard gala before. It's like roof and roof. I
That's
just don't
funny.
get it.
Okay.
But anyways,
I lived overseas, Jimmy.
I know David says rough because he's from Minnesota.
Yeah,
I know
it's
the
a
Minnesotans
crick.
say
It's a
rough.
crick, not a creek, right? So
I lived in Scotland, so it could be, I don't know, it could be a Scottish thing from my childhood days. But thank you for pointing that out.
I will. Thank you very
We
much. No
digress.
problem.
That's your next controversy.
Where were we? Okay, I did not get involved in day one. I got involved in day two. So as soon as I saw that Pat was putting together this Metal Hall of Fame, it spoke to me. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did not speak to me. As soon as, year after year, rap and pop artists are being inducted. It just didn't do anything for me. And Pat just had this brilliant idea, and especially that first gala was, with Ronnie James Dio, Randy Rhoads, all my heroes growing up. I just called up Pat. I go, Pat, I got to be involved. And that was day two. And ever since, we've had a wonderful friendship, and we've had a wonderful working relationship. Me and Pat, we do the artist relations, and that's more behind the scenes, where the Metal Voice, I'm more in front. But for the board at the Metal Hall, I'm always behind the scenes.
Jimmy, one quick question I have for you. You have your ear to the ground in the metal community, and where do you think metal is at right now, and why do you think it's important to have something like the Metal Hall of Fame?
We're not only recognizing, so this. Do you have like 30 minutes?
Yes, but condense it into like 5.
In an industry where the legacy acts and the money is being thinned out, where it's not in the mainstream anymore as it was in 83 to 88. Even though the festivals do very well, we need some sort of institution that keeps the industry going, but not only the artists, but the people behind the artist. Mm-hmm. You're talking about the producers, the touring managers, the writers, the journalists, the whole industry, the infrastructure, where it helps. This Metal Hall of Fame helps not only metal, but hard rock and prog as well. I put that all into one.
Me too.
So we need an institution that sort of brings the focus back to the metal community. And when I mean community, I mean the infrastructure, because it's not easy getting paid today. So,
great point. Okay, so with that being said, I want to bring in the man who really has put his heart and soul into doing just that, and it's Pat Gesualdo. He's the founder of the Metal Hall of Fame. He is the heart behind it. Pat, I'm so glad you could join us today, because I know I've been working with you for 6 years now, and I have watched you go through so much to keep this going, and you single-handedly do so much of the work by yourself. And it's not easy. I mean, I wish people could see what goes on behind the scenes, but tell me a little bit about why this is so important to you, and why you started it, and how you've kept it going. And please mention a little bit about the D.A.D program, because that's a mission behind the Metal Hall of Fame that I don't think gets talked about enough. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a great honor to be here on our very first podcast. So thank you all so much, Cathy and Jimmy and David, of course, for being there, and all the hard work, and our board with with, Wendy Dio and Brian Pereira. So thank you first and foremost. Yeah, so, basically the whole thing came together actually when Deep Purple got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I was watching it one night. I came in from a gig, and I was watching it on my little TV in my kitchen. And, I always tell the story that when Ian Pace went up with John Lord's widow at the time, Vicky, the camera kind of panned to the audience, and everybody was like half asleep, and I was infuriated. It was like one of the best keyboard players and organ players in the history of the world, and nobody really cares. And then a couple segments later, one of the rap guys got inducted, and the place went crazy. And it was right then and there. I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. Somebody's got to do something for a Metal Hall of Fame. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And that was in June here in New Jersey. And then in January, 3,000 miles away, we had our very first show. And then the whole thing after that is all history. But that was really what started the whole thing.
Was it hard to get people involved? Was it difficult to find people who wanted to get behind this?
Well, at first when I was telling people, they're like, you want to do what? They couldn't get their head around it, right? And then as I explained it, they're like, yeah, that's really cool. Let's do it. And as luck would have it, we put the first show together, and it was amazing. Everybody was there, and the fans loved it. We had a sold out crowd, and I did it. And since we've been ever since, really, except one year, right, kicking off the NAMM show, the big music trade show. So. Yeah, and that's how it came together. And there's been so many great stories, some horror stories too, but so many great stories along the way too.
Yeah, we were just reliving a few minutes ago the year that the police showed up out by the red carpet and we're hauling somebody off of the premises.
Yeah.
With
It wouldn't be
bulletproof
metal
vests.
if the cops don't show
Yeah,
up.
exactly. There's always something fun. Do you remember that, Pat?
I do. As a matter of fact, I met the FBI agent that came up to me. There was a federal fugitive at our show.
Yes.
And
Hey,
I thought it was a joke
That's how
at
we
first.
roll.
Heavy metal is for the wanted and the unwanted.
Yeah, that's
so there
right.
you go. So we're
That's great.
keeping true.
Very
It's funny you mentioned that. I think it was in 24 when I was there to induct Eddie. I walked from the ballroom where we had all the artists for like the catering. I was there with Tim Ripper Owens and a few people, and I walked into the kitchen and there's Tom Morello, who I'd never met before, and he was just standing there in the kitchen. I was like, this is just such a random moment, and I knew he was a Megadeth fan, and so we started chatting and started talking, had a great conversation, took some photos, and then said goodbye and went on our way, and then it's funny because then literally a year later I get the call from KK Downing asking me if I would want to be part of this event that Tom Morello was helping put together, which became Back to the Beginning.
Wow.
The final show for Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. So it's funny how, I always tell people, just get in the room. Just be in the room. That's where the action is. The conversations happen. And I told KK, I said, dude, it's so funny. I literally just met Tom a year ago in the kitchen at the Metal Hall of Fame. And, here we are. Now we're, putting together this event. Or he's putting it together. I'm a guest. And, we're in Birmingham rehearsing, and Tom's the MD running the show, and so it's just, and that speaks to the culture of heavy metal.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's once we're in the room, it's just a level playing field. It doesn't matter your stature, your success, and I think the Metal Hall has done a great job of that. It just, we're honoring, people in the metal genre, and metal people are cool, just plain and simple.
I
They're the
agree.
coolest.
I agree. It's kind of like a family. And I had a funny similar story because I was also in the buffet line when we were going to induct Lou Gramm from Foreigner. And I know sometimes metalheads have a little issue like, oh, that's not metal, that's classic rock. But I mean, here's this iconic guy, and I'm scooping out my chicken Alfredo, and he walks up, and nobody in the room was talking to him. I'm like, this guy's a freaking legend. So I went up and I said, hi, Lou, I'm just a really big fan. Like, I am one of your biggest fans. His eyes lit up, and I got to say about the Metal Hall of Fame, he had not been recognized And when he got that award, he had tears in his eyes because I personally gave him his award. And he had his speech prepared, and it meant so much to him. So I think sometimes we don't realize some of these guys who may not have ever gotten the recognition they should have gotten. And like you said, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's got its own issues. But this really meant something to him. It was really important to him. So, Pat, tell me a little bit, you and Jimmy, tell me some of you guys' favorite highlights or memorable moments, like Dave just said, and Dave, jump in too. Like, I want to hear your highlights, your lowlights, and some of the crazier things that have happened in Metal Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, there's been many of those, right? Of
See,
course.
what happens with us, me and Pat, it's the headaches are happening behind the scenes that
Oh, of
people don't
course.
see. There's no police, there's no FBI. It's just basically what? What did you say? What do you want? Who do you want to induct? What? You want to induct all 15 members who were part of the band for 15 minutes?
Well,
What are you saying?
Yeah, that's also another night. But we've had some great things. Of course, inducting Anthrax at Heavy Montreal together, that was just amazing. Of course, one of the most, I think, my personal fondest memory is when I first heard, and this is exactly how it happened, when I first heard that Lee Kerslake had 7 months to live on the Metal Voice with Jimmy. I immediately called up Jimmy, and I was listening to it. And as Lee would say, his dying wish was to get us platinum albums for Blizzard and Diary. And I called Jimmy and said, I have to do something about this. So that was one thing.
I want to add to this.
Sure.
Lee Kerslake said he had 7 to 8 months to live, and he had a bucket list. He actually had a list. He knew he was dying, so he had a list. On the list was to receive his 2-album RIAA certifications, Blizzard and Diary, go to California, meet up with his artist friends, release a solo album, finish his documentary. He did everything on the list with the help of Pat. Pat it was like Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh.
Pat made it happen. He brought him. And you're talking about a man who was sick. I'm not saying sick in the head. I mean, physically sick. Cancer ridden. He brought him to California. He babysat him. And he took care of him. And he brought those two, and he made it happen. He got those two, the two
gold
plaques.
or platinum albums or something. It's funny, Pat.
He met the Rhodes family for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Pat, I remember you and I were talking right around that time. You and I were actually talking about Lee Kerslake, about the flights. We were just, you and I would randomly have these conversations about Metal Hall of Fame stuff. You'd call me, you'd kind of pick my brain. We'd go back, we'd sort of riff back and forth on it. And I remember talking about the thing with Lee, and you obviously you swiped the card, to buy the flight and get him over. And I remember when they were wheeling him in, and seeing him come in. I think I was actually on my way out to a Metal Allegiance rehearsal. I did my induction, and as I was leaving, Lee was being wheeled in, and man, what an honor! I mean, those first 2 Ozzy records, that he was a part of, were just amazing. Plus his work with Uriah Heep, of course. But to get the chance as a fan. I just got done, walked off the stage of the Hall of Fame inducting somebody. Again, maybe it was Nick Menza that year. So doing my part, and then I walk off the stage and I immediately get on my knees. I'm not worthy. So it's funny how the whole circle gets completed. Heroes meeting their heroes, which that was for me, was to meet a hero of mine, Lee Kerslake, who I basically grew up on his music.
And Pat.
Me too.
Dave, to your point, and actually to Cathy's point, when Lee, he was so loved.
Yeah.
There was reporters, there was cameras going off. He was so loved in the time he was there. And actually, strange enough, that 7 to 8 months that he was supposed to live, he actually extended to about 18 months.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you.
And Pat, I remember you and I talking. I remember you were going through a lot in the background trying to make that happen. And do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, it is, we have to give credit to Sharon and Ozzy for making that happen. That took some tough phone calls. And then wasn't there a note that Ozzy actually put or sent with the album?
Well, yeah. So none of that would Lee almost like didn't happen at all. So I was talking to somebody on the phone one night, and I get a phone call, and I see the European code, and I'm at 44. I thought, oh, somebody's calling me from Europe. And sure enough, it was Sharon and Ozzy, and it started off. They wanted to know what I wanted to do, of course, because you remember the little background on this. For 39 years, by that point, there were lawsuits. They hate Lee and Sharon. They hated each other, right? And I'm like, guys, let's just call a truce here. Lee has 7 months to live, and and at first they were like, well. I explained to them what we were doing at the gala. We wanted to surprise Lee because he had no idea he was getting his platinum albums. At that point, I didn't know yet either, right? He was just going to be there. So it just so happened when Sharon and Ozzy called me, and they were like, well, what are you actually doing? And I told them, and they were like, well, okay. And then they said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you the platinum albums for Blizzard and Diary, surprise Lee at the gala. And then Ozzy said, look, I haven't seen Lee in like forever, so I'm going to write a note. Please read the letter that I sent him to him as well. And so that was included when I got the platinum albums. The letter was included in there, and Ozzy, drew a little picture of himself in the corner. And yeah, and then we presented him, and as Jimmy said, right, and Jimmy was there with me on stage, and he did have a bucket list. Remember, he rolled out that piece of paper that went over the podium, and it was all. Yeah, and let me tell you something though. To David's point and Jimmy's point, Lee was in so much pain when he was basically in tears. It was horrific to see it. I had to get a special flight for him to come over. And he told me 10 hours of brutal pain. But you would never know it, right, guys? All of us that were there, you'd never know it. He was so happy. And look, it's not about me. I am so grateful that we were able to do that for him. That at the end of the day, that's just
he's got a documentary, Not on the Heap, and everybody can go watch it on Amazon or pick it up as a DVD. And the documentary was completed before his death, and you could see his whole story right there.
Yeah, what an incredible story that is, and I think a really special moment that Sharon and Ozzy came through for that.
I'm so grateful to them because without them, it wouldn't happen.
They made it happen. So
they made it happen.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
And then there's been some other wonderful things. Don't forget we had Metallica induct Johnny and Marcia Zazula, right?
Yeah.
We inducted Judas Priest in front of 80,000 people at Vakken. We did.
Twisted Sister was a really cool moment because they had
we were the only ones to reunite Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
And how amazing was that show, right,
That
guys?
was amazing. And Mike Portnoy was the drummer on that and came to that show, which was incredible to watch.
Of course, inducting David and working with David to induct Nick Menza, because as we recall, David, that was not such an easy thing either with some certain people,
No, for a very, and thanks for bringing that up, Pat. I had not seen the Menza family for quite a few years before that. I had talked to Nick's sister, Danya, who kind of became a bit of the ambassador, kind of waving the flag for Nick. And then we made the documentary film for him that just came out last year. And that event kind of helped steamroll that process and get it moving. I had not seen Nick's mom and dad for decades. Probably.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Probably since Nick was in the band in the '90s. I had not seen him.
Wow.
And in fact, we've actually started to create a new documentary for Don Menza, Nick's dad, who is a very esteemed
huge
woodwind player.
Yeah,
huge.
Very well recognized.
Played with Buddy Rich, Louis Belson, Woody Herman's band. That's a documentary in and of itself. And he's 90 years old. He just stopped touring 3 years ago. So he's got his own. He played the Pink Panther when he's here. Dumb.
Oh my God, I love that song.
That's Don. That's Nick's dad. So this is a huge musical family. And so to reconnect now with the Menza family, which started with my induction there at the gala, I'll call it a gala now. At that gala is where that started.
Now you guys are making me self-conscious.
Yeah. I don't know. I called it a gala. Is it a long
I
night or a
say
short
something?
day?
I just like to.
Let's take a poll.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Yeah.
Of course you
I am
can.
the only Canadian on the board of directors at the Metal Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And Triumph was my special moment, inducting Triumph
Nice.
into the Metal
Oh.
Hall of Fame.
And now
do
they're
I hear
touring.
Rush? Can we
Yes.
get Rush,
Rush.
please? Can we
Okay.
get Rush?
I did want to sneak that into the conversation somewhere.
Well, Cathy, can I do that? Because
Yes.
I have to let everybody know
Yes.
first of all, I am so proud of Cathy and so grateful because let me tell you something. Cathy also became the host of Bubba Bash, right? Which is a big event here on the East Coast. She also was championing the cause, and Eddie even had her, spoke about her and had her on his show about the tribute to Neil Peart,
Yes.
right? And
Right.
she got to meet the sisters and the family, and I am just so proud of it because everybody in the world knows what a big Rush fan Cathy is.
Well, we're all Rush fans on this panel.
We are.
I
Not
mean-
like you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a
No,
yes.
no.
I'm.
She's
a
our
little,
Rush mole when we send her in, So you actually just saw them, right, at the forum? Did you go out?
I did, and
Yeah.
Jimmy did a great recap of the set list and what was included and what was left out, and there was some discussion on that. So yeah, I mean, Jimmy is on the
Part
beat.
of being a Canadian citizen, you have to
Yes, you
pass the
have
Rush
to.
test.
You
Yeah,
have
yes,
to.
There's
Yeah.
no other choice.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And you
the
know
tour
what,
is
guys?
amazing,
We
by the
did-
way.
We did the only official tribute to Neil when the year he died.
That's
at the Metal
right.
Hall of Fame.
Actually, he
Modern drummer.
died, Pat, he died 4 days or something like that before
Yeah, you're
the
right.
gala.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It
didn't
was-
Because
realize
I was
that.
actually, I was in Vegas 2 days before the gala and he died. I don't remember the exact date, but
It was January 7th.
it was probably the 9th, the gala.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did
and,
not know
I
that.
can tell you because I have the poster. It was yeah. And
And what was the special induction for him? What took place when you had that at the gala?
yeah, so
Yeah.
and it was amazing. I got a call from a modern drummer and they're like, "Look, why don't you do something at the gala for Neil?" And I was like, "That's a great idea." So they sent out some of their, main people from Modern Drummer. Buddy Rich's daughter was there, Cathy, who I've worked with in the past. She was there because Neil was her son's godfather. So Cathy Rich was there. We had some other people as well, some executives in the drum industry, and then we dimmed the lights, right? And we gave everybody the battery operated candles, and we did like a moment of silence. It's amazing.
What a
And it was
special
just
moment. Yeah, what
Yeah,
a special
unbelievable.
moment. And Buddy Rich was hugely important to Neil. He completely retaught himself to play differently
Mhm.
because he idolized Buddy Rich. So I think that's really interesting that his sister came and did that induction.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, especially that Neil was her son's godfather.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't even
So-
know that. That's cool.
So what's
Oh, yeah,
cool with
so-
the podcast now is we can kind of open the floor up a little bit for people to weigh in on who they would like to see it. Like a couple
Yes.
now that we're on Canada, so look, we've got
Yes.
Bachman Turner Overdrive, which are the reason I'm even sitting here, right? The Not Fragile album, 1974. We could go into Coney Hatch, for sure April Wine.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we'd do a full deep dive just alone in Canada. But
Yes.
we'll defer to Jimmy on that. And of course, there's a lot of metal artists all around the world. It really opens up the entire thing. So this isn't just exclusive only to people in America or even North America. So bring in your comments.
Yes,
We
and a
would
lot
like
of
to
the
see
Dave,
what
and a
people
lot of
say.
the fans are around the world. It's
course.
people fly in for the gala. People fly in from all over the world.
The gala and the gala.
The gala and the gala.
But Dave,
Yeah.
the Anthrax induction was special because that was probably the first. Well, no, it wasn't the first international, but it was 35 years since almost the day that Anthrax first played in Montreal. So we inducted them in
Cool.
2019.
Hmm.
It was a press conference at Heavy Montreal, which used to be a festival, big European type festival in Montreal. And let me tell you, that scrum was massive. There was cameras everywhere.
Oh.
It was incredible. But we honored them 35 years since they last played Montreal. And you're talking about Neil Turbin. This was the Fistful of Metal tour that lasted like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was quite the event.
And to that point, and what David said earlier too, right? It's what happens from January to January when we do the gala? Well, first of all, fans have always gone to vote. It's always been about the fans. So they can vote on the website at, metalhallofame.org. And I almost said DAD program because that's our nonprofit, but I'll get into that in a minute. But, we also have the Metal Hall of Fame Mobile Museum, where I have some very rare artifacts from, Iron Maiden. I have a pair of Gene Simmons boots from Love Gun. So we have some really great artifacts there. I bring out the tour bus, and we're also part of Monster Energy Supercross with that. So I'm at that at some major stadiums throughout the country.
Right.
So we have that. Then we have the DAD program, which is our nonprofit that I started.
And that stands for Drummers and Disabilities, correct?
Yeah, Drums and Disability. So I started that many years ago. That was, long story even shorter. So the whole drum therapy thing, which I pioneered, came out of my battles for having several disabilities. I tried to speak at 4 years old. I couldn't speak. I had no fine motor skills. I had no coordination. I had boots, therapeutic boots with metal straps going up from my ankles to my thighs. And I was also severely dyslexic, so I couldn't read or write. But I wanted to be a drummer. So I had to teach myself how to play. It took me 1 full year just to coordinate my left hand and my foot to come down at the same time for 3 hours a day for 1 year trying to do that. So long story short, by the time I was in junior high school, from teaching myself the way I wanted to, or I had to, because no drum teachers could help me because I had no idea what the hell was wrong with me. So by the time I was in junior high school, I'd beaten my disabilities 100%. And then I started private teaching practice. And then, from that, I was doing, as a drummer, major projects. Tommy Mottola was helping me out at the time. And of course, that's going back in the 80s. And Donnie Einer, who is the president of Columbia Records, too. And so I was doing a lot of big things, music publishers. But Mayor Bloomberg and the New Jersey Department of Education Commissioner helped me launch the DAD program. And we launched it in one school. And then from there, now the program's in over 15 countries, where I train brain surgeons, occupational therapists, physical therapists, behavioral therapists, special ed teachers in the modalities of drum therapy and how they could do it, which helps to develop retention, coordination, fine motor skills. So there's a lot to that as well. And the DAD program is always part of that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, Pat. And I think that needs to be talked about more because there's a lot of people who that will resonate with. And I know that drum therapy and music therapy is not only used for disabilities, but it can be used for mental health issues as well, with like PTSD, because I've done a lot of work with veterans, and that's a major issue. And sometimes music therapy can be helpful for that as well. So a really important point, because I think that is kind of one of the big missions behind Metal Hall of Fame, is not just having fun with the music, but also something that's giving back to the community. And I know there's some of the inductees who have been touched by having kids that have some sort of disability or challenge. So
yeah, and 100% of what we make, either with the DAD program or the Metal Hall of Fame, goes to bringing free music programs to helping special needs children, adults, and wounded veterans.
Yeah, and we'll put links for everything as well for people that want to go check that out. Okay, well, we probably should wrap up our first episode. So
yes, our first episode.
It's been
Nice
amazing,
job.
though. I mean, we could go on for hours. There's so many stories we could touch on. What do you guys, I want each of you to say what you see as the future of metal and what you see as the future of the Metal Hall of Fame.
Well, for me, there's two drivers. New music is always driven by the youth, by a younger generation coming up. So when people ask me, what do you think about, the new music? I think it's great, no matter what it sounds like. In my career with Megadeth, we got ushered in by Alice Cooper, who was the icon veteran. And then we ushered in Alice in Chains, Pantera, Korn, new metal, all kinds of different stuff that we got to bring up, and bands that went on to have their own success. So to me, it's always a cyclical thing, and giving back in that sort of way, giving your stage to the next generation. And at the same time, with the Metal Hall, what I like is this last year, we just did a really cool little pivot. We honored the Sunset Strip. We had the icons of the Sunset Strip, from Rat, Dokken, too many to mention. I can't remember them all, but that's one of the nice things that we can do with this is we can be pretty nimble and we can pivot and do fun little things like that to honor even specific genres. So to me, it's about honoring the legends and the legacy artists, who have laid the groundwork for this, but then also making sure that we honor, the young bucks and the newbies that are coming up the ranks, because they are the voice of tomorrow. And as I heard it once said, heavy metal never dies, it just changes generations.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Jimmy?
Very well said, Dave. I don't know what I can add to that, but pick up the New Metal Church CD or album. That's what again. Well, you know what? Or maybe get some Ellefson coffee while you're at it. So I agree with everything you said, Dave.
Thank you, brother.
You know what? It's building an institution, and when you build an institution, it helps. It's sort of like a resource for the up and coming bands to sort of look up to the legends, and from there they can build their own careers. So
excellent. Pat?
Well, I think, of course, the reason why I started it is to honor hard rock and metal, being a metalhead myself, and to preserve hard rock and metal for future generations and the variety of ways of which we do it, whether it's the gala, the mobile museum, and all of the above, and doing events throughout the world to promote it. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the fans, and we're all one big family. So I'm grateful the support that that we've gotten, not only from industry insiders, the artists themselves, but the fans, because it's all about them.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great artists still to be inducted, like you guys were saying. There's a lot of people we could still make a part of this. And I want to just say one last thing to anybody out there that's a business owner or, with a major company or even a smaller company. If you want to sponsor something with the Metal Hall of Fame, reach out and get in touch with us. You could sponsor this podcast. You could sponsor the mobile museum. Our goal, Pat, right, is to get an actual full-time museum for the Metal Hall of Fame. So
that's in the works, yes.
Yeah, that's in the works, and there's a lot of people coming on board, but I just want to throw that out there. And again, we'll put links for the show for everything you can connect to. I want to give a special shout out to our Pratt podcasting studio, best team out there when it comes to podcasting. We have Robin doing our audio, and she's the studio director. We have Billy Harfosh producing back there. Rob Trigg is part of this team. And of course, my friend Dave Pratt. He's Dave's friend as well. So big thank you to them allowing us to do this in their gorgeous studio. And you can check them out at Pratt Podcasting as well. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Thank you, Jimmy, Pat, David. I really am so excited we're doing this. And Pat, you and I are going to co-host some future episodes. So
no, we sure are.
Yeah, we've got lots of, we didn't even get to Wendy Dio is a huge part of this, and she's got a really interesting perspective. So looking forward to lots more fun stuff. And Jimmy, we'll have to have you back on as well. I know, David, you're going to be touring.
I'll be somewhere.
But
he's always welcome. He knows that.
Yeah, he's always welcome. And of course,
you.
Pick up your David Ellefson coffee. It's really good, you guys. I switched from Dunkin' Donuts Costco brand because that stuff is really good.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next time.
Thank you, guys. Bye.